of the month.
Tuesday, the 29th. My vehicles never in a yard? They're both in it. Oh, no, I didn't listen yet.
Lose a constituent? I'm gonna lose a couple of constituents.
It could take years.
Are you in Groton?
The market softened up real fast.
I got a couple people interested already that, and I figure if I talk it up enough.
Right. We are on the record.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Rich probably will be coming along. But we do have a quorum, so we might as well go ahead and get started. We'll call to order the meeting of the Budget, Capital and Personnel Committee. This is Monday, November 14th at 3 p.m. Deborah Dawson has asked to be excused and is moving from one house to the other, I guess, in the same district, she assures me. Legislators Lane and Mezey and Shurtleff are here. Minutes of the October 11th. Make moves and
Move them all.
okay, do we, I
If
think
somebody wants to pull any of them out.
Kathy advised me we could do the expanded budget committee as a group. So why don't we take October 11th?
All right.
Moved and seconded, Mike and Greg. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
October 11th approved. Minutes for the expanded budget committee, September 8th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 22, 26, October 3, 11, and 13. And I'll just make one note on package page 35. I was identified as the town of Groton historian. It's the village of Groton historian. Just a minor tweak. Let you know I'm reading them. Is there a motion for the expanded budget? Greg?
Move them all.
Sure.
And second by Mike. Any discussion? All in favor? Minutes for the expanded budget committee are approved. Welcome, Legislator John. Are there any changes to the agenda today? I haven't been advised of any. Comments from the public? See, looks like mostly county staff. Ann is with us. Doesn't appear that we have anybody public. How about a county administrator's report?
Thank you, Lee. I'll be brief. Just an update to this committee. I believe that you're aware, we have reposted the opening for deputy county administrator. And we have another few weeks for people to apply for that position. So that's been reposted. And then my only other report would be that during the budget process and while we were in the midst of the budget process, we had talked about the calculation of the solid waste fee assessed to colleges, universities, nonprofits, and how that hadn't been looked at and the formula had not been updated for about 30 years. And that we were going to be looking at that internally to see if changes needed to be made. We had one initial meeting and we would like to, my goal is to begin that process, and I'm going to be asking for participation on a very time limited basis from hopefully the vice chairs of Budget, Capital, Personnel, PDAC and F&I to participate in that process to look at that annual fee formula together with county administration, recycling, materials management, and the assessment department. And Jay Franklin has agreed to take a lead role in convening that group, that process moving forward. So our goal would be to look at that and make any necessary adjustments prior to the start of the 2024 budget process. So that's all I have for a report. Whether we need it or not.
That must be about the time they implemented the solid waste fee. Was that the original?
Yes.
Thanks, Lisa. Any questions for the county administrator?
Well, it has been adjusted, the solid waste fee.
The fee's been adjusted, but I'm not sure that the formula by which we assess it.
Parts of it were,
Okay.
don't know about like the institutions and those things.
I think that's the part that we want to really hone in on.
Thanks, Lisa. Director of Finance, is this your last budget committee?
This is,
Discussion?
and I have no report in the words of Jonathan Wood. But you should be getting about 3 months worth of sales tax data coming to you as a legislature in the next couple of weeks, because we're a bit behind on that, but August, September information is being worked on now, and October's information just came out today. So you'll get inundated with a slew of sales tax reports over the next 1 or 2 legislative meetings. Other than that, there was nothing really new to report. I'd leave it to Sean and Deborah and the committee that was looking for a finance director to update the rest of you on how well or not well that process is going. I'm not really a part of that, so I leave it to them to communicate with you internally. If you have questions, you can certainly speak with Shauna and Deborah, and there might be some recommendations on how we do some signatory changes over the next couple of weeks and some other delegation of duties. But other than that, there really isn't anything new to report on that front to you. I have a couple of staff members that are very, very, very concerned about how this process is taking place and how it's moving along or not moving along. And I know any information that could be shared with me that I can share with my staff would be greatly appreciated. I know some of you were on the committee that met with interviews. I wasn't part of that committee, and so I'd appreciate any input that any of you could give me before I leave, so I can kind of settle. I have one more staff meeting scheduled with my staff for this week, and I'd like to kind of bring them up to date on what officially is going on. So other than that, everything else we're still running and still good. And I wanted to thank you as being my immediate bosses for the last 9.5 years. This is the best committee. I know they say that at every meeting, don't they? And
The best committee.
Your village or town is always the best town, and your committee is always the best committee. I will commend you for always sticking with that. But the idea of reporting to 14 legislators up front was quite daunting when I first came here. I've never had that before. Always was appointed by a city administrator or county administrator or a supervisor of some sort. There was one place that I worked right before here where I worked for a city council at large, 7 members. And I'm kind of glad that happened, because that got me a little bit accustomed to what it might be like to working for 14. So I appreciate that learning ability and that learning experience at Fenton, Missouri before I came here. And so having one committee, though, as the budget committee here to officially report to has really made my life easier. After the first year and a half or so, Kathy and I figured out, who do I really report to? And she said, well, you report to the budget committee. I said, well, but I go to all the GO meetings and I go to so many other meetings. And she let me know after about a year and a half that the budget committee and all you were really my bosses. And so I tried to focus on that and design a lot of the workflow and my questions and the answers to this committee that has given me guidance, has given me a couple of evaluations that we walked through, that some coaching that was wonderful to take part in, and also just having feedback to the duties that I was involved with. And so I appreciate this committee because you are the best committee. And I wanted to say that it's been a pleasure and it's been an honor. Thank you.
Mike. We had a historical society meeting Wednesday. We got out after 9 o'clock. And guess who came out of his office and to get into his car? Our county director of finance. And not the first time I've seen him working, burning the midnight oil over there. And he's been very, very committed to us. We thank you for that. The one thing I wish you could take with you, but I know you can't, is the darn Tobacco Corporation.
That's one of the smaller tasks that, believe it or not, becomes a big project in March when you have to get ready for that one annual meeting where you have to do a budget, a 5-year budget all at once. And you have to do your annual financial statement reporting all at once. And you have to fill out everything on the special parish website with the state, which is an online system with them. The IDA does the same thing. And so there for a couple of weeks in March, I'm totally dedicated to Tompkins' task. And regardless whether you like being part of that or not, you know, that does generate some sizable money for the city, even to this day, now receiving over $600,000 a year proceeds that goes into your general fund. That's free money. You can do anything with you want. The other half of that legal settlement that goes back many years goes to retire the bonds that were spent so many years ago that pay off those bonds. So 50% of the money that comes in retained in your general fund. So I don't know who's going to be your next. Let's see, I serve as vice president, secretary, and treasurer of that board. So, and Lisa Holmes is the president. So maybe at the next meeting, she'll be leading off the kickoff on Tompkins' task. But some of these small entities take a lot of time for a couple of weeks and then not so much for the rest of the year.
Absolutely right. I voted against it when they were trying to. What's the word when we sold the bonds to? We kept half of them, half the money, but that's where the $600,000 comes from. But they, gosh, what's the word we used when they sold them to the investors? Half of them.
But sure.
Well, anyway, we did that, and that was a bad thing. I remember Tim Joseph and I voted against it. And,
both of the bond issues that are being paid off over a very long period of time was a pooled bond issue with many counties involved, both of those. And those pooled issuance of bonds is what the pledged revenues that go directly to the bond agent pay off those bonds, or supposedly will pay off those bonds. I don't really know how some of those really long bonds are going to get paid off, even over the long period of time that it's stretched out to, because the revenues don't grow as fast as the interest. It's one of those bond issues where it the interest gets added to, you don't have to make any payments on the second series of bonds for a long period of time. So any interest for that year gets added to the principal. Kind of like if you owned a home, you didn't make any payments. If you could talk the bank into doing that for you, they would simply add the interest to your payment and they would,
Well, it's a negative mortgage.
so you have that negative payment each year on that second series of bonds that makes the principal outstanding go higher each year instead of lower. Now, the first series of bonds is being paid down like a traditional bond issue, principal and interest. And that's all that you really can. The good news is, from what I understand, Tompkins County is not on the hook for these payments of these bonds way off into the future. Anyway, just like we're not responsible for IDA bonds, and IDA is not responsible when they allow an entity to do a bond issue under their covering. So it's very technical. We got good attorneys that work with us with that corporation. They put together most of the paperwork for your annual board meeting. And so I think you'll be in good hands.
Sure we will. Well, sorry, Lee, I didn't mean to get off on that, but
It's okay.
it always grits in my teeth. Let's put it that way.
That's another area that some of us newcomers are interested to hear about, is another aspect of the finance realm that's out there that's not. Rick, thank you on behalf of the committee for your work and your time that you've spent with us here in the last 9+ years. And I know what Mike's talking about, seeing you leaving at a late hour. I know I got to a point where if I needed to talk to Joe Mariana, I'd call him in his office on a Saturday afternoon. If I needed to talk to Rick, I'd wait till 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night and know that I was going to get an answer and be able to have some quality time with him. And
Sure.
It's been a pleasure working with you through various capacities.
Same here. Ditto. The 29th, Tuesday, the 29th.
Hey,
Oh, and- sorry, I should mention, because I don't think Rick is going to, there's going to be a little get together in the finance office
Oh,
on
yes.
the 29th from 11:30 to 1. If you're interested in stopping by.
Yeah, that's down in the conference room.
Oh, it's in the conference
Yeah,
room.
downstairs in the conference room.
thanks, Lisa, for mentioning that.
Gonna have a polka band and lots of food. I pre-approved the use of endless dollars for food. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't have a committee chair report, and Deborah didn't email me anything on that. I think committee work's been fairly obvious here the last few weeks. Is there anything, Lisa, that you know of from workforce diversity and inclusion?
I do not have an update. I know that the next meeting is going to be on December 7th, and they're going to be reviewing the 2022 goals and looking at 2023 goals.
Thank you.
I do see we have 2 appointments.
Yes, we do. Do we want to handle those at this point, or? Rich moves and Greg seconds appointments, and those are for workforce diversity, and they include Kate Shanks Booth, county staff for a term expiring December 31st of 2025, and Ann Corman, legislator, term expiring December 31 of 2025 also. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Appointments carried. Ruby, are you on with us here?
I am indeed.
You have a report for us today.
Just a very short update. The clerk of the legislature search is still in progress. There's a doodle poll sent to the legislators. Please respond for the dates for our next interviews. Compensation study is ongoing. I've had the first meeting with our vendor and provided the information they requested. So hopefully we'll be getting something soon. After the adoption of the budget by the full legislature on tomorrow, we will be sending out the memo to the department heads to review the year-end resolution with all the new positions that have been increased in hours or decreased in hours or eliminated. So the department heads will review before we'll send it to you by the December 12th meeting. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Ruby. Any questions for Ruby? Well, moving right along. Thank you.
Welcome.
Down to resolutions. If anybody wants to speak to these as we go through them, just give me a signal. First resolution, ID number 11288, appropriation from the contingent fund, replacement pay and terminal pay for the sheriff's office. Moved by Rich, second by Mike. Any discussion? All in favor? Carries. Resolution ID 11289, authorizing 2023 payments for Tompkins Cortland Community College operating budget. Motion by Mike, second by Rich. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Resolution ID number 11233, approving the completed tax rolls and directing the executing and delivery of warrants. Rich, second by Greg. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Next resolution, ID number 11234, town and city budgets and printing of the tax rates. And do we have a motion, Greg? Second by Rich. Any discussion there? All in favor? Motion carries. Resolution ID number 11235, authorization for the finance director to make year-end transfers, appropriations, and budget adjustments as required. The magic resolution. Moved by Greg. Second by Rich. Greg has a question here.
No, just more of a statement. If anybody's watching at home, a number of these resolutions are very procedural, end of the year cleanup in nature. So not that we are not exercising our, taking up the floor time to discuss them, but they're sort of clear cut and dry and straightforward. That's
correct. And a lot of these relate directly to the fiscal policy of the county that's been established for quite some time. And does move toward implementation of clearing the 2022 budget and then implementing the 2023 budget. Thank you for mentioning that. So did we approve that?
no.
Okay. So authorization for the finance director to make the year-end transfers, appropriations, and adjustments. All in favor? Motion carries. Next resolution, ID number 11279. Delegating to the finance director of the county of Tompkins the power to authorize the issuance of and to sell $10 million in revenue anticipation notes county in anticipation of the receipt of state aid during fiscal year of said county commencing January 1, 2023. Is there a motion? Second by Greg. I would ask Rick, you want to just kind of tell us a little bit about this and where the $10 million number comes from?
This one is a standard end of the year resolution that gives the finance director authority to sell RANs, which are kind of like our bands, bond anticipation notes. These are revenue anticipation notes. And the county was so broke that they had to borrow money and then pledge future revenues from a particular revenue stream to back that The short-term borrowing gives the finance director authority to immediately go out for cash flow purposes to secure those bands, to keep the doors open and to keep the payrolls paid, accounts payable paid. So it doesn't really apply to us because I don't think the county's used this for many, many years. Mike might know if they've ever done it. It might have gone back to a time where they would forecast a revenue shortfall for 3 or 4 months. And so to get through that need, they might have gone out and gotten a revenue anticipation note to get over that period. But it's a short-term borrowing authority vested in the finance director in case the county is basically so broke that they can't meet its needs. We haven't been there for a long, long time.
I
Thankfully.
never remember us having to do that.
You tell us at one of the recent meetings, you do have a period of time where the cash flow tightens right up.
Well, sure, there are peaks and valleys, just like any other business cycle when we're cash rich compared to cash poor. But even when we're cash poor, we're cash rich. So you don't have to worry about that. I mean, you're in really good fund balance positioning in almost every fund as I'm here right now, that you don't really have to forecast any type of borrowing for short-term needs. Businesses do this all the time. They have a very short business horizon, and they might have to borrow during their weakest months just to keep operating payroll up and operating accounts up. But the county is not in that kind of position.
Right.
I think it was Louis XV in France who said, "After me, the deluge."
Rich?
I'm curious if we were using RANs, would that have an impact on our bond rate?
There would probably be multitude factors that would impact your bond rating before this one would be in effect as far as affecting your bond rating. Why are you in such poor condition that you have to have a RAN? There would be multiple finance ratios that wouldn't have been met for years. Your bond rating would have probably already have been deteriorating over several years. Your fund balances would have gone down noticeably over time, 3 or 4 or 5 years in a row. And so this one thing would probably not impact, having a RAN would probably not impact your bond rating as much as all those other factors that add up to.
That would drive you to need a RAN. Okay.
This is one of those resolutions we do every year. Don't think too much about it, but we've had some discussion, certainly in GO, about the direct reports. And this is one of our checks and balances. The county administrator gets to sign the checks, but the comptroller function is with our director of finance. At least.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution adoption of the 2023 Tompkins County Budget and 2023 to 2027 Tompkins County Capital Program, ID number 11277. I moved that at the expanded budget committee meeting, and is there any reason the chairman shouldn't make a resolution or make a motion here? Because I'll move it here. So, Rich, is that a second?
Yes.
Any discussion on the adoption of the budget?
Well, I was thinking of some radical amendments, just sort of meeting tomorrow night with the board.
Well, let's wait till the floor. Let's wait till the.
Happened before.
What?
Throw that curveball.
Why give folks time to prepare?
I'm trying to think how to answer that. If you would bring with you a set of criteria and rankings and ratings and a process we could go by to address each of those, I feel really comfortable.
I would make a comment, just, I know it's been said, but thank you, Norma and Lisa and Rick and everybody in the staff that worked so hard to get us to that point. It was a pretty smooth budget process this year, it seemed. And I think we're in good shape to start the year because of it. So.
Thanks, Rich. I think you express what we all feel from the budget committee here. And again, thank you to all the staff, Lisa, Norma, and all others.
And we're less than 6 months away from the 2024 process, right?
Right?
All right, final
Right around the
countdown. We're in the
corner.
home stretch, Norma.
Any further comment? Questions? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. We have a resolution to accept 2022-2023 New York State Department of Criminal Justice Services Discovery Grant ID number 11212. Rich has a motion, second by Greg. Is that anything, Rich, coming from public safety that?
This is something New York State is doing because of the changes to the discovery rules that require far broader discovery and discovery in lots of cases where it would not have occurred before, including, say, body camera footage. So we have to save a tremendous amount of video and to be able to produce it. It's very expensive. You know, we've absorbed those costs, so this covers a piece of that, not all of it. Is that fair, Lisa?
Yeah, and to add to that, we are using these funds to pay for staff in the district attorney's office, the sheriff's department, a civil division, as well as Department of Emergency Response, because of the time involved in going through and reviewing tapes, producing them.
You've got some pretty tight time requirements now with the changes in the discovery laws a couple of years back in order for prosecutions to move forward.
Certainly, I think this was a very positive development in general, but even in cases where the prosecutor and the defense counsel are in agreement on what they want to do, you still have to do a lot of work that I don't believe is truly necessary. And that's unfortunate because it just adds a layer of cost. Nothing to do about it.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks, Lisa. Further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes. Resolution ID number 11282, budget adjustment acceptance of New York State Healthcare Worker Bonus funding. Vesting periods 1 and 2. Is there a motion? Mike, second by Rich. Lisa, is this one that you want to elaborate on just a little?
Yeah, I think it would be good for folks to hear about it. And I would defer to Bridget Nugent, our Deputy County Administrator, who worked on putting this together with a bunch of other staff.
Sure. Thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, all. So briefly, the governor in the executive budget for fiscal year 23 had authorized funding for healthcare worker bonuses. These are specific for positions that are working in both direct healthcare and mental hygiene. So we've identified those positions that are deemed eligible for these bonus payments. Vesting periods are in the amount of 6 months. So we've been able to submit for vesting period 1 and then vesting period 2 for those employees that have been employed for those 2 timeframes. And you can see in the resolution those positions that were identified as being eligible and the total amount that we anticipate being funded by New York State through this program. And then in the future, there will be additional vesting periods by which we would submit future eligible employees.
Thank you, Bridget.
To add to this, I think the state not only encouraged localities to apply for these funds, but it's more or less mandated that that we apply for these funds for eligible titles. And we will be, or we have worked with our union partners to come up with the necessary memoranda of understanding for these titles to claim these funds and pay those who are eligible per the state guidance. So this would put that in motion as well.
Thank you, Lisa. Mike.
I think what you noted that the legislature did have a serious discussion about these and came to the conclusion that basically what Lisa said, if we wanted this funding to come to Tompkins County, it had to come with the requirements of the state grant program. And we didn't have any flexibility.
And there was a step in there where we did want to have that conversation with the unions before moving forward with implementing it. Which you're assuring us has been done
Yes.
and the agreement's there, and otherwise we wouldn't be seeing this resolution.
That's correct.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. Resolution ID number 11264, resolution to fund Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act adult and dislocated workers programs through December 31st of 2022 for Tompkins Workforce, Office of Employment and Training. Moved by Greg, second by Rich. Any questions on that one? This takes us through to the end of this year, right?
Yeah, that's good. This just covers the end of this year. And I was curious why we needed this. Run out of funding or?
Sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm reading through it now.
Looks like there was a change in a revenue line, but of $70,000.
Greg mentioned that Melissa is on board. Is that?
There she is, yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi. So programmatically, the funding being moved is for our contract year for Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act funds. It's a federal grant. We simply went through the money faster than anticipated. And so this is just covering us through the end of the year. Our grant will be distributed in January. And this is just a portion of that to make sure that we're covered for the rest of 2022.
So was there more money spent or just the timing of the spend?
The timing, so during the pandemic, because Nysdal and the Career Center, we were not open until June of this year. There was a significant lag during COVID in terms of our funding for programs. And then when it picked up and got busy, it got very busy, and we did spend very quickly for training funding. And that's where, now that we're towards the end of the year, we would just want to make sure that we're okay. We're not currently overspent, however, just want to make sure we're covered to continue to fund training for people.
Any other questions? Thanks, Melissa.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All in favor? Motion carries. Next resolution, ID number 11237, authorization to participate in various contracts let by any federal, or excuse me, by any government entity of the United States of America. Is there a motion? Greg, second by Rich. Rick, is that one on the purchasing side?
Yeah, this is a purchasing resolution, comes up annually at the end of each year. For the next year, it's basically our, what we call our piggyback resolution. We can piggyback others' bids.
You've expanded that in recent years beyond where we used to be, haven't you?
We expanded it to the extent that we can now even go out with some of the cooperatives. They're not just a government agency, but also some of the cooperatives that are available to get best pricing.
I think I tapped one in Galveston or someplace a few years ago on a purchasing for Homeland Security stuff. It was a different consortium I'd never heard of, but the purchasing agent found that for me. Any questions on this resolution? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. And finally, resolution ID number 11261, approval of the 2023 amended municipal cooperative agreement for the Greater Tompkins County Municipal Health Insurance Consortium. Do we have a motion? Greg, second. Rich. Lisa, is there anything you want to add to this one?
I serve as the county's current representative on the board of the Health Insurance Consortium. And each year we have to update with the Department of State, the MCA. So the updated MCA will just include any new entities that will be joining the consortium in the year to come.
And that grows a little bit every year. You've
Little bit,
added
yes.
2, 3, 4 different governments, I think.
That's right.
Anything remarkable this year?
I can't think of anything too remarkable. I mean, we've continued to grow, and we've added staff that are now doing a lot of the work that was previously subcontracted, because we're in a period in the consortium where it makes more sense to do it that way. So they have a benefits person, finance person, and yeah, so in really good shape, I would say.
Mike?
You know where it ended up at the end of the year? Last year, they gave us a pretty nice rebate. The consortium.
Do we know where they're going to be at the end of this year?
Yeah.
The last I looked, I'm not officially the treasurer anymore. The last I looked a couple months ago, they projected to use fund balance, much like the legislature projects to use fund balance, but somehow doesn't seem to get around to being able to use any of it. You still make a surplus. They're projecting a use of fund balance this year, and they will use fund balance this year. So there was a concern, that their levels of reserve were going up. That's the last I looked at, and I think that is still true. So, and I think our rate increase for next year is higher than it's been.
6%.
6%, which is a little bit higher than the last 3 years or so. But those are both about the most noticeable things, is that the increase was a little bit higher, and they're wanting to not build the fund balance over and above their prescribed reserves. They have 4 or 5 various types of designated reserves for different things, but they didn't want to have a unencumbered reserve or a unappropriated reserve that kept growing each year, because the municipalities that are made up of very small towns and villages just cannot handle it. So they wanted to do the best that they could in keeping that rate down for the ratepayers, those smaller towns and villages.
I would also add that a lot of that savings was generated due to a reduction in claims during COVID. So there were savings that came about as a result of that. And that was one way in which they agreed to give back to municipalities. And that wasn't the case this year. Claims experience is back where you would expect it to be.
That was in 2020, what you're referring to, where they waived a whole month's premium, 1/12 of the revenues, basically, for everybody. And that was the COVID year, the heavy COVID year.
Mike?
Continue to get requests from other entities. Would love to be able to join the consortium. One that sticks in my mind right this minute is the rural libraries. Would very much like to be able to be members. I know we went to bat for Soil and Water Conservation Service a few years ago and got some state legislation. Is the consortium board talking about any of this?
I don't know if they have been approached by the rural libraries, for example, but if they, I think, speaking as a board member, I'd be willing to entertain or look into whether those entities would fall under Article 47, or we could make a case for them to fall under Article 47. I would suggest that they reach out to Elin Dowd as the executive director.
Okay. Any chance you could send me an email and I could forward it?
Sure.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this? Ready to vote. All in favor approval of the amended municipal cooperative agreement, say aye or signify. I see them all. Thank you. Motion passes. That ends our list of resolutions we have before us today. We handled the advisory board appointments. Are there any other items of business to be brought forward? Mike?
I just wanted to mention that the Deferred Maintenance Advisory Committee, as TC3 calls it, I call it the Capital Plan Oversight Committee from the two counties at TC3 met today. They meet every month. And the college continues to try to put together a plan for deferred capital expenditures for the college, which the last count when they were looking at it was like $40 million, which obviously we don't have to give them. But they're hoping to come to the counties perhaps in the spring with a plan and an ask for a capital program and see and take the temperature of the two counties at that point and see what we could do. There's a little money left. There was $800,000 in the million that we had the two counties had worked for them. Cortland had bid on the Cortland Highway Department had bid on some of that work. They've installed brand new sidewalks at the college, and we'll be in the spring adding some asphalt. Won't be enough to do all the paving, but that's some of the work. There's another $150,000, and they would like to do things like rebuild one of the elevators, update some of the equipment in the food service area that can't keep food cold enough to allow them not to have to throw the food away. And they have some doors they've got to replace. And those are some of the things that they want to do with this money that's they still have available.
Which committee would they be coming to talk to, Mike?
This one.
Thank you. Any other items of business? Not, I guess we can stand adjourned. We've got full county legislature meeting tomorrow night and continuing meetings with the Community Recovery Fund. And Mike, you've got a facilities and infrastructure meeting Thursday, right?
Right.
We've got a full week ahead of us here.
One of the best committees too, you know.
I agree.
As I say, public safety's meeting Thursday.
That's one. Oh, that's right.
Geo has already completed their assignment for this month, so, the crown jewel of committees.
Those are my top four right there.
You going into politics?
Well, get it out of the way and we can enjoy Thanksgiving. Thank you all. We'll stand adjourned.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.